Welcome to the World Football Summit podcast, the show for football industry leaders who want to stay ahead of the game. We bring you the latest insights, trends, and stories from the experts driving innovation and progress in sports business worldwide. Join us as we dive deep into the ideas and initiatives transforming the world of football. From sustainability and innovation to player development, fan engagement, and everything in between. Our goal is to unite the global football industry and drive positive change and progress. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the World Football Summit podcast. I'm your host, Jaime, CMO at World Football Summit. This week, we welcome another amazing female leader in football to the show, as we get to sit down with Preeti Shetty for an awesome conversation. And gee, I'm just trying to find the best way to introduce you to Preeti, but I don't know where to start because what hasn't she done? She is CEO of Upshot and director at Brentford FC. She recently launched Valeur with another awesome female leader and previous guest on the show, Arianna Criscione. She is also involved with Ready. Again, what hasn't she done? Preeti and I talked about her different roles, about entrepreneurship, Web3, leadership advice for female leaders. Yep, this was so much fun. And you know it, Juan Valdez, which is 100% premium Colombian coffee, did not miss it. I must admit, as you know, that I'm very picky when it comes to coffee. And I must say, Juan Valdez definitely hits the bar. But this cup of coffee is much more than that. It is a premium blend developed by female coffee makers, and Juan Valdez has this program in which they look to empower these women both economically and socially. This resonates very much with the Female Leadership in Football initiative we launched at World Football Summit a few months back. So I'm very excited to partner with them to offer this premium blend to you. You can order it online at es.juanvaldez.com. Again, es.juanvaldez.com. And they actually have a special discount for the World Football Summit podcast listeners. All you need to do is enter the code WFS podcast at checkout. Again, that's WFS in capital letters, followed by podcast at checkout. And they deliver to all markets in Europe. So give it a try and let me know what you think. Don't forget to subscribe and rate the podcast on your platform of choice and share it with your industry colleagues. You can also subscribe to our newsletter, where every week we send updates, trends, and everything that goes on at our events. You can find the link in the show notes. And now, enjoy this conversation with Preeti Shetty. Preeti, we finally made this happen. I'm thrilled to have you on the World Football Summit podcast. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, a long time coming, but I'm very excited to be here.
I think the wait is going to be well worth it. But before we go into, there's just so many things I want to talk to you about. I don't know if we're going to have time. But anyway, I don't know if you can briefly introduce yourself and really help our audience understand the why is it that you do what you do.
So my name is Preeti Shetty. I am the CEO of Upshot. I'm a director at Brentford Football Club, director of London Sport Trading, the vice chair of Street Child United, advisor at Ready Sport Global, and the co-founder of Valeur Sport. My why, my why is pretty simple. Like, I passionately believe in the power of sport to change people's lives. And I think the way to prove that sport works is by leveraging data, purpose, community.
Nice. How do you do all those things?
So I always say it's because I don't have children. And so I have a bit more time. And so I treat all my businesses like they're my children. So there's a lot of juggling. But, honestly, I'm involved in many different things, but I feel like I'm actually just saying the same thing, but in different contexts, right? That data is currency, that you need to have purpose built into everything you do, that none of us can do it alone. It takes a village, it takes a community, and empowering your community to be inclusive gives you the best chance of success. So I don't actually find it very difficult to juggle those things because they're all things that I inherently believe in.
Well, that's interesting. How you frame that, I really liked it. Is okay. I'm just looking at the topic from different angles.
Exactly that.
Interesting. So Preeti, the reason I wanted to have you here is because we are going to cover a lot of things like female leadership. We're going to talk about technology. But you mentioned it that you're a CEO and founder of Upshot. So I don't know. Let's start there. What can you tell us about that?
So, Upshot is a tech social enterprise that works with nonprofit organizations, predominantly sport nonprofit organizations, to help them measure their social impact. And what that basically means is we look at how organizations collect data using a tool that we've built, so a software as a service, to help them articulate. Really, the way we describe it is the so what question. You've delivered a session in your community, you've delivered a football program, you've delivered an intervention for young people. So what? What is the difference that you are making because you're doing the work that you're doing? And so what we do at Upshot is help these organizations understand and evidence their so what question using data.
All right, that's interesting. So what are some of the most, let's say, call it impactful projects you've worked on?
I mean, we're incredibly lucky. So we work with just over 1,400 organizations. They're all doing incredible work in their community, right? Like most of our clients, our organizations, are nonprofit organizations. They inherently have good social change built into what they do. We work with every rugby league club in the country, every Premiership rugby club in the country, every county cricket board in the UK. We work internationally with sports development projects. Some of the ones that really stick out for me, are the ones that are fully embedded in their community. We work with a brilliant charity called Oscar Foundation in India that works in one of the largest slums in Mumbai. And they use football as a tool to support young people with education and with employability. Um, for a few years, we worked with the Ministry of Justice in the UK, where Upshot was in every prison in England and Wales, looking at the impact that sport has on reoffending rates. We work with a range of youth charities, so London Youth and all of London Youth's members, looking at um, how you can work with young people and engage young people to a range of different initiatives. So we're really lucky that we get to see impactful projects all the time, and we see them at different levels. So, we've got a woman who runs a running club that she just does on her own. We've got an international federation. We work with Oceania Football Confederation. And so we see them at all the different levels, and we see how you can really use sport in so many different ways to tackle quite complex social issues that everybody, that society is facing at the moment.
Well, and the list of projects is just amazing. And what I like about it is you hear the industry talk about the importance of data and the different uses of data. But to be honest, I haven't heard many people talk about how you can use that data for social impact. Everybody's talking about performance, fan engagement, business, not social impact, right? So I guess for me, the question is, based on what you have seen, are there any challenges or maybe let's flip it around opportunities on that sports organizations can take advantage of or face if it's a challenge about using data for a social initiative?
So it's interesting, right? Like when we first started doing this, it felt so much more difficult to get people to understand why you should use your data to do good, to understand the good that you might already be doing in the world. For a long time, the organizations that we spoke to thought about this as accountability. We have to do it because our funder is asking us, because our board is asking us. Actually, we think it's about effectiveness. In looking at your data to understand what is working and what isn't is incredibly powerful, especially when funding is tight, money is tight, especially for charities. And so often it's the first thing to go. It's like, oh, this extra system I don't need. Whereas if you start to think about it as it's telling us whether what we're doing is working, obviously it's the most important thing there is, right? The challenges come from the fact that traditionally people that work in sport, they love what they do, they're really good at it. They don't naturally love tech and systems and data. Like coaches, it's not their go-to thing necessarily. And so for us, one of our main goals is to simplify it. This isn't rocket science. Data and tech should make our lives easier. You're probably doing it anyway, but it's really thinking about how you embed it within your organization. It's not one person's job. So I'm not a big fan when people have like a head of monitoring, evaluation, or learning, head of data analysis, because then everybody else thinks that's that person's job. Whereas measuring your social impact, looking at your data is everybody's job. All of us within the organization play a role. And I think now the sport industry is really recognizing how valuable it could be to articulate your social impact. and we're seeing a change. Now they understand the benefit of data, firstly, because everyone's talking about it. But really, when you boil it down, it's telling you whether what you're doing is working or not working. If it's working, how do you replicate and scale it? And if it's not working, how can we understand that in real time so we can tweak and adapt it? It's an effectiveness process thing, right? It's not anything bigger than that. But if you do it right, you're able to articulate the story of what you do as an organization, and that's incredibly powerful.
Yeah, it is. And I really like what you said there is, okay, data should not make things more complex. It should actually help to simplify things. And very important point there. And the other one that you mentioned is everybody in the organization should own it. At the end of the day, it's kind of like the brand. At the end of the day,
Yes.
everybody should own brand. Data is everything that you know. Everybody should own it. So interesting. Um, Leadership question for you, Preeti, because this was, if I'm not mistaken, this was not a social business, right? You came in, you turned it into a social business, and you became CEO. And so I don't know, what do you think you did well, or what challenges that you recall from that, call it, transition period?
Honestly, it was really hard. Like, I think about it all the time. It was really hard. So Upshot used to be part of the UK's largest sports charity called the Football Foundation. I thought I ran it at the Football Foundation. I was the head of Upshot at the Football Foundation. And when we transitioned, so I bought it off the Football Foundation about 18 months ago. And I realized that I didn't run it at the Football Foundation because we had finance, legal, admin, HR, all of those things. You know, we were a department within the Football Foundation. And so learning so many new things really quickly in a really high pressured environment, coming out of lockdown, this was March 2021. It was incredibly difficult. There was a lot of crying. And there was a lot of Googling. Like, I Googled every single thing because I didn't know I'd never run my own business. I had no idea how to do so many of these things that you just don't realize that a CEO has to do, or at least I'd never realized. Because if you work at a larger organization, you've got support systems, you have experts in these areas, whereas I didn't have any of that. And suddenly I realized I was legal, I was finance, I still am, I was admin, I was IT. Because we suddenly went back to being startup, basically. But really, luckily, I have a brilliant team. So my team came with me and all our clients came with us, and they took real responsibility and ownership for making it work. Like, that's what we did well, is every single person stepped up, and they still are. They step up every single day. Nobody at Upshot has one job. Everybody took on another role to make this work, and everybody went above and beyond because we care. We care about Upshot. We care about our clients. We believe in the work that we're doing. And so everybody was willing to put the shift in, right? And I didn't get everything right. Like, I made a lot of mistakes. I'm still making mistakes. But I have such an incredibly supportive team, and they understand that I'm doing my best, and they don't hold it against me when I mess up. And they are always looking to make us better. How can we be more efficient? How can we be more effective? How can we be more innovative? Sometimes, especially in those early days, I was just struggling to stay afloat, right? Like, I wasn't even thinking about better. I was just like, I was in survival mode for the business and for myself and for the staff. Whereas my team has just been really great at, and they just do it themselves. Okay, we're here now. How can we be even better at every single thing that we do? And that, like, team ethos and team dynamic, that culture, I don't think I could have done it without them.
But that is kind of like a great example of the power of purpose and culture.
Yeah.
Because what you said there is, hey, I came in, I had to start wearing many hats. But if I understood correctly, is because everybody understood and was aligned to that purpose, everybody was willing to wear many hats.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that's important for making things actually work.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I don't think we ever said that. It's not like we sat down and said, "Hey, everyone needs to do this." At the end of the day, it's a job. You do it for everybody else. It's a job, and so I don't think we ever had that conversation, right? Where it's like, "Listen, this is our culture, and we all need to do this." People just did it. Everybody just did it, and I think you're right. That's because there was such a strong, there still is such a strong sense of ownership, belonging, purpose. Everybody understood that in order for this to work, we had to all pitch in, and everybody had to do it, and they just did. And I think that is, I don't think you can fake that. It's either there or it's not there. I think the important thing is what you do to keep that going, because at so many points of time, I've thought, why hasn't anybody left? Like they could have all gone and they can get better jobs, but they don't, right? They stay because they believe in this thing. And I don't think you can fake that.
No, you can't. And it's not about putting words on a wall or in some, whatever guidelines,
Yeah.
it has
Values
to
on the
be.
website. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. I mean, people have to live it at the end of the day. Then you put it
Exactly.
on the website, then you put it on the wall. But first,
Exactly.
you know, nice. So we talked about data. Let's talk about another key, call it technological trend. Let's talk about Web3. So you're also involved in Ready, as you mentioned before. So I, for those that don't understand what Ready is, what is it? And most importantly, why does the industry need a platform like it today?
So Ready was established in June 2022 by the brilliant Lucy Mills, who used to be at Barcelona Foundation, has worked in tech and sport development for many years. And really the mission was to build a learning community that ignited curiosity about Web3 and about other emerging tech, but with a specific focus on women's sport and women working in the sport industry, right? Because Lucy and I got into Web3. We started looking into it. We found it quite male heavy. We found it not very diverse. And we realized that the few sport projects that were happening in that space were focused on men's sport. And again, nobody was looking at women's sport. And we really wanted to build something that allowed women working in the sport industry, or specifically looking at women's sport. Women's sport has always had to be innovative. It's always had to push a little bit harder because it's never had the same resources, the same awareness, the same money as men's sport. And so we sort of looked at this and thought, you know what, the first step is let's learn and let's make sure these spaces are inclusive. Let's ask the silly questions. So whatever happens with Web3, women are ready and women's sport is ready. And so the Ready Web3 and Sport Hub, it's housed within Ready Sport Global, which is a company that collaborates with sport organizations, with brands, with agencies, with athletes to inspire kind of purposeful innovation and technology to advance women's sport. The impact has been, I mean, it's been really interesting because in such a short time, so I mean, again, about, a year, it's taken off. There's been, partly this is because Lucy is brilliant and she's done so much with it and the brilliant team of consultants she has working with her. But in the short time alone, we've trained over 900 sport industry professionals in Web3. We've
Wow.
produced an introductory course on Web3 and sport, specifically looking at supporting women in the sport industry. We've done a bunch of networking events for industry leaders in this space in London, in Barcelona, and Manchester. We're working, some of the projects we're working on, for example, now we're running an AI and sport workshop for sport for development practitioners at the ISCA Move Congress in Madrid. We're working with a Premier League footballer, men's footballer on an education and professional development program. We're working with women's rugby on education, inclusion, and social impact. We're doing some blockchain innovation testing in women's sport. So you'll see this, again, all those threads are still running, right? It's a disruption of how we can use this emerging tech to really do some of the quite traditional things, fan engagement, investment, philanthropy, education, but looking at it with a new lens to say, how can we do this? How can we leverage some of this new technology to do it a little bit differently? So, for example, this month we're launching a new course, an Intro to AI and Sport course, and it's got some brilliant people on it. It's got like Nancy Hensley at Mercury 13, it's got Jacqueline Comer at Areto Labs, and we're constantly looking at that cusp of tech innovation and sport and finding new ways to do things that sport has always tried to do.
Wow, that's nice. And I like the angle of we're not going to reinvent the wheel in the sense of we're going to look at what the industry has traditionally done, just going to end up, but keeping that foundation, which I think is something that the industry really needs to focus on to really, respect the legacy that it brings and the
Yeah,
things that have worked. And then how can I add the technology layer into it to, call it reach new heights, right?
exactly.
So I'm going to take advantage of this and I'm going to ask because I'm curious. And, we saw 2022 was not a good year for anything related to Web3. So I guess I'm going to ask a double question here is what went wrong and what did we learn to kind of like help us have a better future and help Web3 technology live up to its potential? Because I believe in its potential. But what needs to happen?
So, I mean, obviously, lots of things happened in that cusp of 2021, 2022, where there was hype right around it. It was like, oh, this is going to be the thing, and it's a very speculative industry anyway. I think sport got it wrong. Like, I think sport had a bit of FOMO and tried to too quickly capitalize on Web3 and the Web3 space without fully understanding it and without educating either ourselves as an industry or, more importantly, our fans. Like sport, if you look at the sport projects that were happening, last year and the year before that, they were very revenue heavy. They were trying to make money immediately. They saw it as an additional source of revenue generation. They didn't take the time to think through the technology, blockchain technology, and what the applications could be. And that's where I think we got it wrong, right? It's like, and that's also why I think it's good the hype has gone, because all of those like quick buck players have hopefully gone away. And now it's giving us time to really understand how we can use blockchain, how we can use the technology to build things that will benefit the industry. And partly for me, the problem is people went solution first. Nobody took the time to think about what is it that we're trying to solve. And instead they said, Web3, we should do that. And the problem with doing that is it took fans especially by surprise, because it's a bit like there's a lot of misconceptions in this space, right? I say Web3, people hear crypto, and they're not the same thing. And it's also a complicated, overwhelming space. Like it still does. Like sometimes I keep saying this, I need to read something 3 times before I understand, because it's written in a really dense way. It's complicated. And what we need to do to capitalize on the opportunity is stop using all these terms. It's stop making it so confusing. It works well when people get benefit. I don't need to understand the technology behind it in order to use it. And so we really need to understand what is it that we are trying to do with this space and why, and then look for how we're going to improve things. Will blockchain help me do something better that I'm doing now? Or will it help me do something new that I can't do at the moment? I think both of those are quite interesting spaces, but going in to make money from it that quickly was a very, very silly move. And what we've done is we've lost trust. And I think now any projects that are happening in this space need to be very careful and very considered, because first you earn back the trust and then you start to show benefit, right? Whereas we could have done it differently.
I'm just thinking, well, 2 things. I would love to have just one episode speaking about Web3 and everything that went wrong with you. We're not going to have time because we have so many things to talk about. But I will recommend anybody listening to go to the Sporting Crypto podcast to listen to the conversation that Pet had with you, because that was an awesome conversation, to be honest, and for anybody that wants to learn more about it. So I highly recommend that. If you want to hear Preeti, listen, share more knowledge about the space. The second thing I was thinking about is a framework I actually heard this weekend. And when you look at new projects, is first understand the background and the context. Then you really need to define what the problem is, which to your point, nobody had a clear picture of what the problem was. But then you also have to realize, okay, why does that problem matter, and why does it matter now?
Yes.
And that's very important. So I think it's part of like, whatever the industry wants to, and anybody who wants to launch a Web3 project, I think they could look at it from that angle, because it's really going to help, I think, focus things better. Right.
And exactly. And for us with Ready, that's why we're starting with education, right? We're saying, do the thinking, put in the thinking, understand the concepts, understand what it will do for you. Take the time to understand your problem space, whether this is the solution for you, because there's so many projects I've seen where it could have been a Web2 solution. They just did Web3 because they wanted to do something in Web3, which is always going to fail because it's not very authentic.
It is. Right. And to your point, you said earlier, is you really need to embrace the fan and involve the fan. Because if the fan doesn't see the use case or doesn't understand or is lost, it's not going to go anywhere. So are there any other keys for like anything else that has to be true to
I think, for me, like I'm very bullish on it. I think blockchain isn't going anywhere, and I think we will all be using it eventually. We might not know we are, but we will be, and that's part of the win here, is not knowing. And we are already seeing, already the space has changed so much in the last 12 months alone, and we are seeing more and more things where It's so much easier to onboard. You don't have to do the very difficult wallet creation. But for me, the stuff that's really going to work is where it's focused on loyalty, where it's focused on engagement, where it's focused on transparency. That's what blockchain is bringing. And so if you're looking at it and you're right, you have to do it with your community. What is it that you want? And what is it that we are giving you? And I say this all the time. It's a give, give, get. Nobody's saying that you can't make money from it, but don't go in with trying to make money from it, right? It's reward. That's what this space does really well. Reward, and then learn and co-create with your community. And then I think there's so much room for success here. But yeah, nobody's taking the time, and it's changing. There are some really interesting roles in sport, head of Web3 roles in sport at the moment that they're not even building yet. They're just learning, and they're thinking and they're talking. And that, I think, has all of the ingredients that they need for success. Because when the time is right, when they have understood the space better and their fans better and their problems better, then I think they will build something great. But also, I think we need to, and this is exactly what I said on Pet's podcast, we need to lose this language. Like, we need to rebrand. It needs a major rebrand. But I don't think the tech is going anywhere.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Anyway, again, those listening, if you want to check that out, I highly recommend that. It's a good masterclass. Let's shift over to now entrepreneurship. So we talked about data, we talked about Web3. Now let's talk about entrepreneurship. So you're starting a new business with another great female leader we had on the podcast, Arianna Criscione. So what can you tell us about Valeur?
So Valeur is going to be, it's very early days, a salary and pay tracker platform for women working in sport. And so the idea with it is really to look at transparency in pay compensation, pay equity, and to give women working in the industry a tool to help them benchmark their salaries, but not just their salaries. As you mentioned, Arianna is an ex-pro footballer. So we're looking at it both from the athlete perspective as well as the women working in sport perspective. How much should I charge to speak at a conference? How much do I charge for an Instagram post? What should my next promotion look like? So really giving them, and it links back to all the stuff I've just said, data to start with, but then not just data, but the skills that you need. How do you negotiate a pay rise? How do you talk about money? How do you write a business case for yourself? How do you prove your transferable skills, especially if you're an athlete trying to transition into the sport industry, which obviously Arianna did very successfully. And then finally, businesses, you can give women data, you can give them the skills and networks and tools that they need. We still have kind of structures in place. And so how do sport businesses show their commitment to their female workforce? And so we're building something similar to a B Corp certification. We're calling it F Corp, where businesses can apply and be assessed on their policies and processes. So maternity, childcare, menopause, progression rates, a job board that never says the salary is competitive, because I don't know what competitive means. And so really trying to open up that space to allow the women currently in the industry to know their worth, to know their value, but also for women looking to get in the industry to understand what is available to them.
Nice. Because I'm thinking, as you mentioned that, and I like the way you, at the end of the day, the business case approach that you're building. So what are some common challenges that you've seen women face, in the industry when they're talking about this, when they're asking for equal pay? I mean, because at the end of the day, I guess that's what fueled you guys to launch the project. No, so what were the insights?
I mean, it's been fascinating. So we're currently in an Adidas incubator lab, and so we've been doing market research all summer with women, but also with businesses, and it's been really interesting. We knew this already, but for it to be validated, women don't like to talk about money. It's incredibly uncomfortable. And even those that do are okay with it, like Arianna and I. We don't know what to ask for. And so it's such a stigma. It's such a bizarre thing to realize that you won't talk to your friends, your family, your colleagues about salary, about money, because people find it uncomfortable, right? And then traditionally, the sport industry is quite a closed shop. Sport businesses always tell me, oh, we're struggling to find good female talent, especially at a senior level. But it's not that they don't exist. We are just not doing a good enough job of attracting them. And at Valeur, we believe that's because we're not transparent enough, right? We're seeing all these new roles in women's sport, but these roles have never existed before. If they start at these lower benchmarks, it's going to take even longer than 257 years to close the gender pay gap. And we don't have that kind of time.
No.
Arianna is a new baby girl. We are building something that we would use today, but we're also building something for her. So she can come into an industry where she feels wanted, she feels valued, but also that's reflected in her pay. And that for me is the last bastion here. Like, I think sport has come a long way in trying to look at gender equity. And there's loads of brilliant leadership courses out there, women in football, women's sport collective, women in soccer, these brilliant membership bodies that are doing a great job in looking at leadership. But we looked around and there's still nothing talking about money. And that's the last barrier, I think, that we have in place, that if we can break that, then potentially, we're setting women up to help themselves, really.
Yeah. It reminds me of a conversation I've had with other female leaders in this podcast. No, I think when people talk about money, they see it as a risk to their career in a way. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, because you've done the research, but the way I see it, and this is applicable to men and women, and for some reason, what I've heard from them is women are more adverse to taking a risk that may impact their career because it's taking them so much effort to get to where they are that they don't want to lose that, right?
Exactly. And you know what? Like, when you look at sport businesses, right, they're traditionally built by men for men, because back in the day, it was mostly men working there. Lots of businesses, not just sport businesses, but particularly sport businesses. Now that we have a lot of women in the workforce, we need businesses to adapt their processes, their policies, their behaviors more in line with what a female workforce needs. And you're right that partly it comes down to what we do as women. And a lot of the market research has been that the fear women have of getting it wrong, of asking for a promotion, of saying no to a job, because the power dynamic is off, right? It's like, this is already quite hard. I might as well just get my foot in the door. And so I'll do whatever it takes. Actually, that's the wrong way to look at it. The way to look at it is, I need to know that you also want me. Like, when you think about interviews, there's those questions at the end when you do an interview, which is like, do you have questions for us? Everybody always just asks questions they think sound impressive. They never actually ask the questions they want to ask, right? But once you're in, and then you can't change anything. And so it's and that comes with you knowing your own worth, your own value, that very famous thing about how men will apply for a job if they meet 20% and women 80%. It's that thing. We need to believe that we can do this. We then need to have the opportunity. But then you also need the right structures in place that will enable me to succeed when I'm there. It's not one thing. It has to be all of these things together, right? And you're right. That's not, it's not only a problem for women. It's also a problem for men. We're obviously just two women looking at it from the perspective of women, because we have a longer way to go. And so a leg up, tools to help are probably more needed for women right now.
I agree. And that's something else that we're trying also to push at World Football Summit. Through initiatives like this, we believe it's a must, and it's because it's good for business. At the end of the day, it's not a social initiative or anything. It's good for business. So at the end of the day, it's what needs to happen. It's only fair. So I guess for those who are interested, is this a project that's just for women? How can they sign up? Can anybody join? I mean, what are the requisites there?
It's absolutely not just for women. Obviously, we are primarily focused on women, but there's no point benchmarking women's salaries against other women's salaries, right? It defeats the purpose. So we need men, and we will be obviously data scraping all salaries, but we want men to join, to be allies, to put their data in, but also to understand what challenges women face in the workplace so they can be better colleagues, better managers, better allies. This is definitely not a vendetta against men. We just have a long way to go to achieve parity. And so anybody can join, but we're really encouraging women to join. And the way to join, it's very early days, but if you go to our website, www.valeursport.com, you can put in your email address and then watch this space, because we're just building all of the bits that go into it. But we're really keen that, this doesn't come across like women doing women things only for women, because as an industry, this is about all of us. And as you rightly pointed out, this is good for business. And so if you, wherever your role is in the organization, if you want to understand your female staff better, if you want to sort out targets that you might have for yourself. If you just want high quality women applying and working for you, then this is a good initiative to be part of.
I think so. And I wish you the best of luck, not only because I really want you and Arianna to succeed, but as I said, I think the industry needs it. It's crystal clear. And so we really need this initiative, and initiative like yours. Anybody that's, interested in learning more, I highly encourage them to find out more.
And that's actually probably been the most interesting thing about the last few months. I mean, we've been doing this obviously alongside our day jobs, Arianna being pregnant for most of the time. What has been so crystal clear is everybody we have spoken to within the industry, everybody has gone, yeah, we get it. And yes, it makes sense. And yes, it's needed. Men and women, businesses and, staff.
Mhm.
And I think that tells us something, right? It's like, even when obviously, starting a new business is always difficult, but the validation from the sector has been incredible for us because everyone's like, yes, this is a thing that we need. And that is that's a great first step, right? It's not like people are saying, no, this is terrible, we don't need this. The industry is supportive, and that's all we can ask for at this stage.
It is encouraging. And I think now the next step is for really all of us listening and whoever joins to help make it happen. No? So
Yes, please.
we'll be rooting for you. So, Preeti, so we talk about entrepreneurship, we talk about data, we talk about Web3, but this is a football podcast. So let's talk a little bit about football. So, and you're a board director at Brentford. You joined in 2021. Then the club gets promoted to the Premier League, and it's actually become, an example from an on the pitch performance, but also off the pitch. I've heard so many guests on this podcast and so many leaders speak very well about Brentford. But first, what's your role at the club, very briefly?
So I'm a non-executive director on the board. And basically what that means is the role of a non-exec director is to provide creative contribution and constructive challenge to the executive through independent oversight, right? So that's probably the most important words there is independent. Basically, we're a sounding board for the executive team. So we help with strategic planning, we give ideas, we support the team to be the best business that we can be. It means we don't work within the business, but we oversee the way the business is run. And each of us has our area of expertise. So I chair the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion and Wellbeing Committee. I'm particularly focused on our social causes, obviously, because of the work that I do. As a small club, we all pitch in where we needed with my background. So I support on some of the data and digital projects off field. So that's kind of the main, and then obviously we all do board meetings and all the legal obligations that we have to do because we are legally responsible for them.
And I was going to ask about that. I mean, you're driving a lot of initiative related to social impact because that's your area of expertise, no? So, I don't know, how are you doing that? I mean, both within the club and beyond.
So we, as a club, we always say we put inclusivity at the heart of everything that we do. I heard someone say this recently, and I'm fully stealing this line. Diversity is a fact and inclusion is an act. And so we can put in, and we have lots of initiatives to drive diversity, better recruitment practices, more representation at all levels, more targeted hiring processes. But inclusion is about attitudes and behaviors. How welcome do we make people feel? How we choose to behave in the office and on the pitch. That stuff can't be token. It's similar to what I was saying, with culture and Upshot. We need to live and breathe it every day. We need to make sure the culture of the entire club reflects that. From the stewards that you meet at the gates on a match day to the people working in the club shop to how we behave as a board, all of that counts. Now, we're already the most diverse board in the Premier League. That isn't enough. We need to make sure that we are living those values, our values of togetherness, respect, progressiveness. Like that stuff is what counts for us every single day. And so, yeah, we have a lot of initiatives, but it's a choice. Inclusion is a choice for us.
That's what I was going to say. At the end of the day, it's a decision one makes. It's at the end of the day, it's pretty binary. It's yes or no.
Yes,
It's
exactly.
really up to you, right? So, and are there any, I don't know, any key initiatives or anything that you want to highlight?
Yeah, so our director of equity and inclusion, Kamini, she's been brilliant at driving this strategy for us along with her team. As a club, we're really focused on 4 pillars around this space. So fostering a sense of belonging. So everyone feels they can be themselves. They can bring their whole selves to work, to the club, whether that's fans or staff. Safety, physical and psychological safety, fairness, fair systems and processes, and representation, ensuring that we are representative of the community that we live and work in. Under those pillars sits a whole range of measures, initiatives, and they're aimed at all of our stakeholders. So our staff, our players, our fans, our communities, our partners. But really, those are the things that we look at to say it's holistic, right? How are we doing things in all of those spaces to make sure that we are as inclusive as we can be as a club, as a whole?
Okay. And one of the initiatives that I like most is one that's called the Thousand Stories Initiative. So we'll link to that in the show notes, but if you can briefly explain, and most of all, I want to understand how did that happen? What triggered to make that awesome campaign?
So it's really interesting. As a club, we've always been about people, our staff, our players, our fans. We anecdotally always heard these wonderful stories about how and why someone came to be part of the Brentford community. It was a thing somebody told somebody would tell a story about something. But for us, this was a way to bring those stories to life. Stories that we already knew. So, for example, it's a brilliant story about Maria, who came from Ukraine. She works at the club now. And we knew that. She works with us. She's a colleague. But also stories that maybe we didn't know. And so we actually ask our fans in our community to send in their stories so we can start telling them as well. And it's resulted in all of these wonderful stories that we might not have heard of otherwise. And for us, it's a way to connect more meaningfully, to understand other people's perspectives and what drives them. It's a way to put yourself in somebody else's shoes, because we all have our own reasons for being a Brentford fan or part of the Brentford community. And so, yeah, it sort of came from knowing that they exist, but then really wanting to pull them out and understand that we only know what we know. And so what about the stories we don't know? And so much brilliant stuff has come out of it. It's one of my favorite initiatives too.
It is. It's just amazing. I really recommend people to check it out. And also another action the initiative that I really liked is last year you guys decided not to launch or actually maintain the same kit, for the 2022-2023 season. So how challenging was that? Because that must have been a tough decision from a revenue perspective, I assume.
So it's interesting. So as a club, we believe in football being affordable for our fans. We know there's a cost of living crisis. We're aware of the need for our game as a whole to be more focused on sustainability. Obviously, it's something that everyone's talking about quite a lot. So when John, our CEO, brought up the idea, every single person was actually in agreement. It doesn't solve all of the issues, but it's a small step in the right direction. Now, we obviously timed it with our second season in the Premier League, so it made sense on many levels. Firstly, we could afford to lose some revenue, right? It's a big decision to make, but we had just got a whole load of money. And so it was quite good timing that if we were going to lose revenue, then that's when we did it. But also that first shirt will always be meaningful to us and our fans, our first season in 74 years in the Premier League. So it fit just right with our values and our ethos as a club. And so surprisingly, it actually wasn't that challenging because everybody was really aligned on why we wanted to do it and why we continue to do it. It was just one of those things where, it's an idea that as soon as John said it, everybody went, yep, that's perfect. And then you need to think through the logistics of it, the operational, the consequences. But that felt kind of secondary because the purpose made sense for us. And so then it was like, okay, let's go run the numbers. Let's see what this means for us. But if it's doable, then we want to do it.
It's just amazing. And I really like that because at the end of the day, it's a great example of, okay, we have our legacy. We're not going to forget about our legacy here. We know we could make huge tons of revenue, but at the end of the day, for us, the legacy is more important.
Exactly.
And that's a great lesson. One final question about Brentford, because I was once having a conversation on the podcast with Jordan Gardner,
Yes.
and he was telling us that, for him, Brentford was a great example of a club with stability. And at the end of the day, stability drives business results and good team performance. And so what are some of its secrets that you can share, obviously?
So I think my answer is going to be very disappointing here. There's no big secret. Everyone at the club, starting with our owner, Matthew, and our manager, Thomas, and the board and the staff and the players, everyone is aligned. Like that is really the big thing. we understand what we're trying to do. We do it together. Everybody is pulling in the same direction. Everyone buys into the ethos and the values of the club. So even when things get difficult, the decisions are relatively clear. We want to be a well-run club. We want to add value to the Premier League in our community. We want to hear the voices of our fans. We want inclusivity at the heart of everything we do. So we try and put those things first while operating in an incredibly competitive environment, of course. And it helps when the team does well, right? When the team on the pitch, the players, when the team does well, it makes everyone's job easier. But that alignment at every single level is probably the closest thing that we get to like a secret sauce. And it's nothing more than that, but it is not compromising on those values and that ethos, no matter what is put in front of you. And knowing that whatever decision you make, everyone is backing you. And I think that is something we have in spades at the club. Every decision is backed by every single person at every level.
It's not disappointing at all. On the contrary, it's
Okay.
great because
I just feel like people
sometimes,
always think we're going to say data or, something like that. It's not.
but sometimes what I realized with this is the simple answers are the ones that are the most effective at the
Yeah,
end of the day.
you're
It's
right.
as simple as let's all get aligned and let's all have a common vision and let's just take it from there. And as long as we're all aligned, everything's going to be easier. There's no secret sauce, right?
Yeah.
As you said, right? So, Preeti, this has been so far an awesome conversation, but I can't, and we have just a few minutes left, but I can't let you go without asking about some, you know, leadership advice, career advice. And that was, you have great knowledge in Web3, in data, and in entrepreneurship. But I mean, to me, the main goal was to, get your take on some leadership and career stuff because you're a true example of for other women who want to build their career. And but you're also a good example of someone who knows the power that football can have in society. And that's something that we also strongly believe at World Football Summit now. So, yeah. So, what's your vision? Let's start with that. What are kind of like the key drivers for having football even create better or more social impact?
I think for me, it is, my vision is a more open, inclusive, progressive football where women are welcome and valued and everybody feels like it's for them. We can do so much good with football. The power we know is undeniable, as you just said, but we need to leverage it for good rather than just to leverage it for money. And yeah, I'm going to bring in a Web3 concept here, but football is a public good. It should be a public good, something that is available for everybody for free. And just because I access it doesn't mean there's less for you. That is what football should be. But we have put all these barriers in place. Ticket prices, broadcast, um, discrimination, all of the things that go within it. And I think if we start to go back to football as a tool for good, that is where the real power of this lies. And that for me is how we will eventually change the world and have real positive change and positive transformation is looking at those bits of football that can be the most inclusive, progressive, open, affordable, sustainable.
Yeah, I love that. Football is a public good. I really like that. So, what advice would you have for any leader that wants to drive more social impact? I mean, because one thing is, to see it, one thing is to actually do it. So,
I, I actually think it's the first question you asked me, which I think is such an important question, is understand your why. Like, why are you trying to do it? Creating meaningful social impact, it doesn't happen overnight. You need to be super intentional with it. You need to work at it. You need to understand the role you can play within it. There's a really famous saying that I love. There's three kinds of people in the world: those who watch things happen, those who make things happen, and those who say, "What happened?" And
Mhm.
make sure you're not in that last category, right? Don't let it all pass you by. If you want to do so, if you want to create social impact, if you want to drive meaningful change, you have to make it happen yourself. You can't watch it and you can't be the person that finds out later. So I think that is, that's the step that if you really want to do this, that's the step you have to take and you need to think about it and do the work.
For that I always think about the quote of the man in the arena.
Yes.
That's a great quote. So I mean, it always reminds me of that. So I guess it's related. And I really like that. I usually go back to that when you feel that you're having a bad day, things are not just going your way, and I guess it's what happens. Um, and in terms of also we've talked about diversity, inclusion. I really like the quote like you said before, which is at the end of the day, inclusion is an act, right? So what can sports organizations do to foster more, diversity, more inclusion? Again, it's good for business. So what needs to happen?
I think I'm still, it's changing, right? Like most clubs, most sport organizations now have a head of EDI in some way or the other, which is good. But it comes back to what I said earlier around it's not one person's job; it's everybody's job. And so you have to do the work, right? It's like for me, there's sometimes still a bit of lip service happening. It's saying, yeah, we really care about EDI, we really care about diversity and inclusion. But then that's not how you behave. That's not what I'm seeing. That's not how our fans are behaving on a match day where there's racist abuse and sexist abuse. So, walk the walk and talk the talk, right? So for me, I think what is still frustrating sometimes is it feels token, like the number of things that I have seen every day. I see a panel that's all white men. I mean,
Mhm.
if you are not thinking about that as you're hosting an event, as you're, um, as you're promoting a campaign. So, for example, whenever we do something at Brentford, we always have, when we do a signing, a panel, we have our male players, but also our female players, and our female players are in tier 6. So, they're not fully professional yet. But that's a choice that we're making to always have them there. And I think for me, sometimes I look around the industry and I'm like, you're saying all the right things, but are you doing them? And if you are doing them, look inside first before you do external initiatives. Look at your own organization and are you diverse enough? Are you inclusive? Do your staff feel that way? Because that, you have to clean up your own house before you try and clean up the sector, right? So I think it's really important that people do the work and that people understand that it's not always going to be easy. And this stuff, it can be uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable talking about race. It's uncomfortable talking about gender sometimes, or LGBTQI rights or disability. And these are not easy topics, especially if you don't have any lived experience of them. But bring the right people to the table so you can learn about that experience and that we start to build structures where we're not just promoting diversity, but we are living it.
Wow, that's a great point. It goes back to some of the things that we've been talking about. You actually have to do it. No
Yeah.
other way around it. Just do it, you know? And let's speak out to the female leaders out there who are listening, no? In the past I've heard you speak about the F word. And for those of you out there, it's actually failure. Uh, that may be one. So, and we talked about this before, right? I mean, how sometimes women, they may grade or fear of failure. So I don't know why that is. And more importantly, what advice would you have for those women to, get rid of that fear? I mean, you're not really going to get rid of it. You just have to dance with
I love
use
that.
it.
That's a
Yeah.
really beautiful way to put it. I love that. Yes, you have to dance. I'm going to steal that, by the way.
Not mine. It's Seth Godin. So credit to him. That
Oh,
one.
there you go. That's beautiful. Yeah, I love that. Um, yeah, I mean, listen, I'm a big fan of failure. I think failure is a byproduct of risk and innovation, and you need to try things, and especially in the spaces we've been talking about, right? In emerging tech, in um, EDI, social causes, social issues, social impact. These are complex areas, and so if you're not failing, it means you're just doing the same thing all the time. And so I think we should embrace failure, but don't get me wrong. We're not celebrating incompetence. Making the same mistake over and over again is silly. But trying new things and failing is okay as long as you are learning from it. And as long as you are thinking about, you're taking those risks and you're learning something from them. Like I always say to people, so what if you don't get that job? So what if you don't get that promotion? What's the worst that's going to happen? But it's worse to think, what if, right? And
Yeah.
the issue, I think that, I do think women have a harder time embracing failure and taking those risks. That's because there's more pressure. Like there is an emotional burden that most women have to carry because often you are the first or the only of something. I'm the only woman currently on Brentford's board. I'm the only South Asian woman on any Premier League board. Being that first or only creates a lot of pressure because if you get it wrong, then there is a risk other women are judged on your performance, right? And you don't see that for men. I always think about, Boris Johnson was a really, 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 really bad prime minister, but nobody is saying let's never hire a man for that job ever again.
Mhm.
Whereas, there are definitely Liz Truss, who was also very bad, but there is a bit of but women. And
Yeah.
I think in sport, in football, we see that particularly because there are very few women at that level. And so when they do something wrong, they get so much more abuse, they get so much more judgment that obviously they don't want to take the risk. Like, why would I put myself in that position for everybody to want me to fail? Right. And I think that's the big difference that so while I do think women should take more risks and not be afraid of failure, we also need to create psychological safety and structures that protect them from this. And I don't know if we have that yet.
Well, I think we don't. And I've heard this from other female leaders, especially I heard this in a panel in World Football Summit Africa that, yeah, it's fine to get them to leadership positions, then you need to empower them,
Yes.
at the end of the day. So to help them be more independent and take decisions that may not go well. It's fine. It's part of growth, right? As you said, failure has to be a path to growth.
Yeah.
Really, at the end of the day. Any other advice you would have for female leaders out there?
I think, I'm a big fan of, I think, especially earlier on in your career, say yes to all the opportunities that come your way because you never know where it's going to take you. And when I look back at my career, this is not what I planned. This was not in my plan. I didn't plan to ever own my own business or do these things or sit on a Premier League board or do anything with Web3 or even tech, to be honest. But I said yes to lots of things and I learned so much by doing. And so, yeah, I think say yes to all the opportunities and if you don't like it, you don't ever have to do it again. But potentially it leads you on a path that you would never see coming otherwise.
Nice. That's a good one. Say yes. I like that. Preeti, I just, have a few questions left on what has been an awesome conversation. First one being, as you know, at World Football Summit, we launched a rebrand. And I just feel obliged to ask you this question. The rebrand really calls for a better industry that's committed to innovation, to excellence, to sustainability, to more equality. So if you could define in one or two sentences, something very brief, the football industry you want or the football industry you need, how would you do it?
Purposeful, data-led, disruptive social change. They're just words I put all together.
No, but that's nice. So it's purposeful, data-led,
disruptive social change.
And given the scope of your career, how would you define your career so far in one or two words?
Accidental, like so much of it I just fell into. Definitely inclusive. Yeah, it's, inclusive, passionate. Like I think for me, so much of everything that I do, I think is around that this shared belief that sport is a wonderful thing that can change lives. And so, yeah, I think for me, everything I do around it is really how can I leverage what I know to be true with the skills that I have, right? It's that, that Japanese notion, ikigai. It's really thinking through that why, like what is my why in this thing that I believe? That was definitely more than one or two words.
That was beautiful. And I want to thank you for that. And overall, I want to thank you for this. I mean, this has been a great conversation. I knew it was going to be good, but not this good, So, Preeti, I don't know if there's anything else you want to share with the audience. Where can people learn more about you, about everything that you do?
Yeah, I mean, social. So you can follow me on Twitter at Preeti Sporty. You can please go to valeursport.com and put your email address in because we need you. The Sport and AI course that Ready is launching this month, which you should all access if you're interested in tech. If you are keen to understand around data and measuring social impact, then please go to upshot.org.uk and buy a ticket to come see Brentford. We are on a good run at the moment.
I'm going to be one of those purchasers.
Amazing.
Preeti, I want to thank you because I was worried we weren't going to have time, but I'm so happy we did. I'm so happy.
Yeah, we got a lot in.
I think so. This was a true master. So I want to thank you. Thank you for your time. We're going to have to do a round two one day, though. I'm going to have to invite you back.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I'd love to be back. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Preeti. Have a great day, and we'll speak soon. There you have her, Preeti Shetty, with an awesome masterclass about pretty much everything. So many takeaways from this one. Where do I start? First, data. It should not make things more complex. It should actually simplify things. And the more important lesson here is that everybody in the organization should own it. Then, things in the Web3 space went wrong because there was too much speculation around it. For things to work, there must be clarity around the problem that it solves before tackling the solution. And remember, the fan must be involved, be part of that solution. If not, it's not going to work. Another great lesson. Remember that quote Preeti cited? Diversity is a fact. Inclusivity is an act. Nothing else to be said there. But overall, the main theme of the conversation is really around purpose. know your why, and then acting on it should be much easier. Be the one that makes change happen and be a believer that sport and football can change the world. In fact, the football that Preeti wants and she needs is purposeful, data-led, disruptive, and create social change. What more can you ask for? And finally, remember to check out Valeur. The industry needs it to drive more inclusion. It needs it to drive more business. Did anything else stand out to you? Let us know on social media. Don't forget to subscribe and rate the podcast on your platform of choice and share it with your industry colleagues. Oh, and before we go, if you're ever in Madrid and are looking for a place to network effectively, share a traditional Spanish snack but with a modern touch, or simply enjoy a relaxing moment for yourself with a delicious sweet pastry to break your day, make sure you visit La Hermosita. You won't miss. I'm not kidding when I tell you I recently bought my wife a small piece of pie for a special occasion. She just loved it. So again, visit La Hermosita, and when you go there, make sure you tell them you heard about them on the World Football Summit podcast. You can find the link to the website on the notes of the episode. Remember, you can also subscribe to our weekly newsletter. You can find the link in the show notes. Nothing else from my side. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the World Football Summit podcast. We hope you enjoyed it and you learned something new. I'm just amazed at how many things that Preeti shared, and I'm just really happy to see that, she was able to share so much knowledge. Have a great rest of your day, and we hope to see you next time.